Welcome to the Blooming League of Original Podcasts.
G'day and welcome to the extra miserable edition of Thrash and Treasure, the Torture Chamber musical comedy podcast, which failed to read that the fine print says I'd have to write one of these jokes every episode. And speaking of princess, I'm Aaron, and every good princess needs a great queen, so I'm joined as unusual by the Welsh Queen of the West End. So roar with excitement and jump through flaming hoops for the gal who ain't just sweet, she's Plaza Sweet. It's Caroline Sheen. How's it going?
Hello! I'm not just sweet, I'm Plaza Sweet. That's great. I'm going to put that on my tag on every poster ever.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's just hope that Plaza doesn't actually mean something bad in Italian.
I think it means square or something like that.
Oh, does it?
Like a piazza type thing, I think.
Oh, well, you are sweet squared. There you go. So how are you going?
Not bad, thank you. Not bad. Plodding along in the business we call show.
Awesome. And what have you been up to since we had you on about, 15 episodes ago?
Well, I did Plaza Suite for about 4 months as Sarah Jessica Parker's standby. I didn't get on, which I wasn't expecting to, and I wasn't disappointed by. I was quite happy not to go out and perform in front of a crowd of Sex and the City fans who would have been incredibly disappointed that Sarah wasn't there. But it was a really exciting experience. And yeah, I'm still kind of living off that, really, doing a few workshops and concerts, and I have about 8 Bernstein songs to learn. So I've got a lot of Candide going through my head at the minute for a concert in October.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Wonderful. Well, anyways, by the way, guess what?
What?
We have another legendary West End diva up in the royal court tonight. And by George, is this king an open book? No, really, is he? I'm asking for some old friends, because this Manchester-born monarch has made a mark on Messiah and Macbeth's music box before muttering "am-dram, thank you, ma'am," and moving mountains, including Hushabye and Black, to move millions by harmonising at the 1999 Rugby World Cup. Then after homecoming from matriculating at Mountview Academy, where he cut into Sweeney Todd and nailed Jesus Christ in Godspell, it's no wonder this Brundabar bloke has since travelled the world without leaving the British Isles, but only because he couldn't afford to pay his rent in Germany. So please help me send off a huge Aussie g'day, quickly followed by a bon voyage, as his 2-time Prince Charming and 2-time Charming Princeton hops into Chitty Chitty Bang Bang with Dido and Aeneas for a roadshow by following his musical direction up to Holby City, then driving down Avenue Q. But if you miss Saigon, you're moving too fast. So slow down so we can go walking in Memphis before moving on to Spamalot via Vienna for a quick stop at the church. No, I'm not getting married today, or any day. Instead, we're heading into the confession room because forgive him, Father, for he has sinned when he stole a loaf of bread and was sentenced to spend the last 5 years as Jean Valjean in several West End variants, such as the stage concert, the Barbican reboot, the 25th anniversary at the O2, plus original recipe. I guess we better find out what 11 secret herbs and spices have tantalized audiences then, now, and next. So please bend and snap over backwards to welcome to our torture chamber, sewer lair, this angel of music / singer of wedding / beauty of sleeping turned Eddie of Souther, who could be that guy what made sure Grace, Callie, and Dessa rose to their feet like a Studley fireman at the Nativity. So before I make like Dickens Unplugged and pull out of this intro, let's bring him home and wrap this up in Hamilton, where he flowed like a harpoon daily and nightly. Will he ever stop? Yo, I don't know. Turn off the lights and he'll glow like the superstar he is. So put your hands to the extreme and rock the mic like a vandal for the devilishly suave Mr. Jon Robyns. Welcome to the torture chamber.
Wow.
How are you going?
Wow.
That was fucking unpracticed. Oh my God.
That's amazing. I've listened to a few of your podcasts and they're always so impressive. I wonder at what point you regret putting it in as a standard thing.
Oh, well, like 3 years ago, mate.
Do you think, oh, yeah, I'll book this person, but that's a CV. God, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so impressed.
That's what it gets like, and the more they have, the more daunting it is. But then if they don't have enough, I don't mean there's any disrespect to rising performers out there, but if there's not enough for me to work with, it's all filler.
No, absolutely. But the thing is, I mean, I've been doing this 20 years, like, I mean, Caroline has as well. And you realize that you're working with people half your age now that are 20 and you are 40. And so you've been doing it for as long as they've been alive. And they say, oh, your CV's massive. And like, and you kind of go, well, thank you. But it's not about ability. It's just, I've hung around long enough to work.
Yeah.
You know, you're just old. And then you go, oh, do you know this person? Do you know this person? Yeah, because the industry isn't as big as you think it is. And you end up with the same people again and again. And I will say, the nicest people hang around and have longevity, the most easy to work with, not necessarily the most talented, although that's useful. I think the most people that have the longer careers in this world are the people that are nice to work with, you know?
Yeah.
So if I've got a long CV, it's because I'm nice, not because I'm good.
Yep.
It is. I can vouch for John. He is a very nice chap.
Thanks.
And I think you're right. I think it's that thing of like you start getting work at the beginning of your career because you're in the right place at the right time. You're talented enough to get the job, but then to continue in the industry, I try and tell this to people that I teach, one, you have to be yourself, but hopefully that self will be the person who is good in a team environment, who is good in a work environment, and who people want to work with. And like you say, that means you get to this age and all the people you're surrounded by are people that are nice and good. So it's inspiring to work with them because they're lovely people and you're inspired by their talent and their gifts as well. So it's a good place to be. There's less work.
Sure.
There's not as much work because obviously we're getting older and things like that. But I think that's quite an interesting side of it as well, because then we have to sort of change our outlook on stuff. So it's all a constant development, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also, I'm sure you've experienced this, Kaz, that a lot of the people that you started out with are now handing out the jobs. They're directors and they're producers and they're choreographers. And although they know how good you are or how nice you are, how easy you are to work with, they've also got, you know, they've got the goods on you in terms of what you did in a bar on a tour 20 years ago. You know, they know they know this stuff. So right.
Well, funny that, because I got a question here. So what did you do in a bar 20 years ago on a tour, John? No, I'm absolutely kidding there. But I agree with you there. But I also think a lot of that is people start off with one dream and then life, career opportunities lead them to something else. But then they get to a point in their career where they can go into writing, they can go into directing because they've laid out all their cards properly. They've made all the connections. They've been a good enough person to have stuck around in the industry that people have said to them, yes, we will give you that opportunity to produce your musical, your debut musical with a superstar like Alice Fern. I hope I'm saying her surname correctly there. So I might be wrong there because I'm not a performer, but my dream started off as that. And I also wanted to write and direct. And I've stuck with that. I've stuck with writing, but now I am doing podcasting, and as I said before, I've produced for Lizzie B and Alfie Parker. Their show is on the air now, 14 episodes. So that's where life has led me. I'm still having professional actors read my scripts, just not in the way I was expecting it. So who knows what the next opportunities are?
Absolutely. I mean, you would hope that the longer you're in a career and an industry, regardless of what corner of that industry you're in, your understanding of it deepens, as well as the connections that you make with people widen. So it is nice to be able to diversify and have people believe that you can.
How are you managing your ambitions now, since you've played literally every great role that the West End has to offer? So,
except Mama Rose, he hasn't played Mama Rose yet.
I know you're writing and all that sort of stuff. So, where are your ambitions lying at the minute?
Well, it's funny, when I got cast as Phantom, I got, you know, when you join a new company, you do a bunch of introduce the new cast interviews. And so I got the question several times, well, what's next? You've completed everything. And although I can see where that point of view comes from, you are of the same opinion that I am, because we've discussed it many times, about how new stories are always available. And what's exciting about what we do is being able to tell stories from a modern sensibility as well as a Dickensian sensibility or an 80s idea, or, you know, shows that from a different time periods. Telling stories now about now is as interesting to me as telling a Gothic story that was written in the 80s with Phantom. You know, although the size of role is not necessarily established yet, doing new stuff is always the holy grail. So when you get to do these workshops, and you've done significantly more than I have, so you'd be able to answer this question better than I do. But when you do these workshops and you go, this writing is brilliant, this story needs to be told, I'm looking forward to being part of bringing this into people's minds. When you get that opportunity, that I think fires your furnace up. So just doing new stuff is fun. Doing established stuff is also fun. But my ambitions are different than they used to be.
Yeah.
I really wanted to play this role and that role, and I got the opportunity to do it. So, but you know as well as I do, the show schedule, the life that you live when you're doing an 8-show week of something big or something established, the life is the same. You know, if you're playing a bigger part, it takes over a bit more of your life. You're playing a smaller part, like when I was doing King George in Hamilton, it's 8 minutes a night, so I didn't have to compromise any of my life. But when I was doing Valjean, I had to give up my life so that I could work. But a show's a show, you know what it is. It's about how much spiritual enlightenment or fulfillment you can get out of the role and the company and the experience. So I guess in some respects, my ambitions are different in that there isn't a dartboard that I can throw a dart at now for a role, but the headline is still the same. You know, I still want to tell interesting stories in good ways.
Yeah, I agree. That's the thing, isn't it? And I think it's that thing of like, when you've been in loads of jobs, you do realize what you get out of the jobs are the people, are the friendships, are the experiences of being in that job, rather than necessarily playing the part. That's the work and that's the enjoyment of being on stage. But the show is so much more than that. You know, there's hours backstage and in rehearsals and in workshops that you have to be with people. And like we said earlier, that's what's lovely is when you are around lovely people.
Yep.
No, I completely agree. And that was what was so weird about playing a role like Phantom, because you're completely isolated. So the enjoyment of company goes out the window.
Yeah, you miss that, don't you?
Yeah.
The playing with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found that with Eponine. Eponine was a really lonely role for me because I found she was always trying to catch somebody. You know, she's always after Marius all the time and he's ignoring her. He's looking somewhere else. So I guess maybe Phantom is a male version of Eponine, you know, like that unrequited passion for something.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. We need to do a YouTube video of John singing On My Own and Caroline singing Music of the Night. Please, please, may this happen.
We're up for it. You know, we'll do that.
Let's do it. We'll sort it out.
We'll do that.
Yeah. Just speaking of singing other people's copyrighted material, just an apology to Vanilla Ice for ripping off your lyrics there in my introduction. And also just speaking about rap. Now, it's funny because for the listeners at home, it actually got a yes from John, I think it was about 2 years ago. And I had to go through the Les Mis people because you're doing the post-COVID production as Jean Valjean, one of the greatest roles in musical theatre history. Goodness gracious me. Now, they never got back to me, and then you ended up disappearing off Twitter. And it wasn't until probably about 2 weeks ago when I posted David Thaxton's episode, which I had booked David. I'd sort of already penciled in for Sunset Boulevard, and I wanted to get him in between Broadway and West End, right? And I booked him not realizing that he had done a musical with Caroline, and there's an actual pro shot of that. So I was very, very excited. But also what I didn't realize until 2 days ago was that after Michael Gibson, Caroline's husband, abdicated from the role of King George, you then stepped into the role, did you not?
Having already played Mike's boyfriend in a previous production.
Oh, well, there you go. So, and then by that point, Caroline was obviously on this episode as a guest co-host. So I was like, well, this was obviously meant to be. So just listening to you guys talk is absolutely fascinating. But I do have to move us on. That's the horrible part. Now, you, speaking of ambitions and trying new things, you've recently taken up hosting, I believe, with your late night West End project. Sorry, I couldn't be there yet again. I wasn't invited. So how did it go?
It went very well. Of course, you're invited. It's an open invitation to you. It went great. It's a funny time to host a project because it's post-show in London, and the majority of people that come to shows in London don't live within walking distance of the theatres, so have to try and get trains home afterwards. So we made sure that it finished whilst public transport was still going. So it is kind of guerrilla warfare musical theatre in that, you know, you got to be precise about what you need and get right to it and distill it. And it's only an hour, so we get to sing 4, possibly 5 songs, talk about maybe 3 things, and then play a fun, silly game with everybody, and that's sort of it. So it went really well. Charlie Byrne, who is currently starring in Mean Girls at the Savoy Theatre that Caroline knows very well, it was fantastic. And we have a connection from when she played Cosette, Valjean's daughter, and we spent a year together doing Les Mis. And she's been through an incredibly hard time recently. She lost her father, and she's been very open about that online. And I think that's incredibly admirable that she would continue to work at such a high standard, and it is a high standard that she's pulling out.
Am I right in thinking that she lost her father like in tech or during previews of that show and she kept going?
Yeah.
Quite outstanding. I don't know her at all, but I know that story, and just, you can't get your head around something like that, can you? But an incredible tenacity she's shown there.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the generation above us's mentality of the show must go on, it doesn't matter what happens to your brain. It is the we give you what you need mentality, and she has been very open about what I need is to deal with my grief and come to work and do that, and that's helping me. And she's just been so strong, and I've been so proud of her. I get sort of weirdly paternal about the actors to whom I play fathers, and it happens more and more over the last 5 years.
That's because we're getting old now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have lots of show mums, and now I have lots of show daughters.
Yeah, like you say, we used to be the child characters, and now we're not. And having teenage kids as well puts that sort of thing into perspective, But the show went really well. We played some silly games and sung some fun songs, and everyone had a bit of a drink, and it was great. I'm looking forward to doing it. We're doing it every month. If anyone's listening to this in London, please come along.
What were the silly games?
Charlie did something I called Anything Blows. I gave her a recorder, an instrument she cannot play, and asked her to attempt to play musical theatre hits, and everyone had to guess what they were.
And you want people to stay in the bar?
I would win that game. I have grade 5 in the recorder. I would win that game. It would be a big success.
Well, yes. Annoyingly, we don't want you to be good at the recorder. We want you to be terrible at the recorder. Otherwise, we're going to get what it is.
No, I don't like being bad at things. I'll do it on the piano. That would be bad. That would be bad on the piano.
There you go. We've got Rachel Tucker coming along in October, and then Simon Lipkin coming along in November. And we're going to be doing it every month, and it'll be fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, if you need any more performers, I happen to know a lovely performer whose husband, I believe you know.
Oh, sure. Sure.
And isn't he's working upstairs in the same venue?
I could show you the list of people that I want to bring on, and you're both on it, so you will be getting phone calls.
We'd never be able to keep it to under an hour. Me and John would be like, blah, 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 blah.
That is a problem.
Chat, 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 chat.
Yeah. Now, I just want to throw it in there. You're talking about sort of the show goes on and personal tragedies. Random memory came to me while you were talking, which is very hard to have. Sort of this old random memory from 93, maybe. Lacey Chabert from Party of Five was in Les Misérables on Broadway playing young Cosette. And okay, this could be wrong. I could be making this up. Their apartment burnt down, but she still went on that night. And I remember reading that as a child, having not long started doing theatre. And I was always just so inspired by that and inspired by her and that show goes on mentality that, look, it doesn't matter if your whole world just burn apart. You've got an audience waiting for you to go out and do it. But there's a little Les Mis and Mean Girls connection to that story. So I could be wrong. If anyone knows Lacey Chabert, please ask her to come on my show. And we can confirm that story. Anyways, but we're going to move it on. Before we move on, though, Home and Away or Neighbours?
Neighbours, I'm afraid. I never watched Home and Away as a kid.
Oh, thank God. 25 minutes in, you can stay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm aware that Home and Away was sort of more overtly sexy, but the middle-class suburban mums really do it for me, so I'm not sure that Neighbours was ever going to lose that one.
Yeah. It's Melbourne. That's why. Anyways, speaking of middle-aged mums, I guess, improvise the segue. We'll move on to the metal now. Have you had much experience with metal, glam metal, industrial metal, death metal, et al.?
Metal, not much. I mean, I'm a real rock fan, but I feel as though rock and metal are distinctly different.
Yep.
And my musical grounding was in Radiohead and Muse and the Manic Street Preachers and all those sort of 90s rock bands. That was my thing growing up. I've obviously been to a few metal gigs. A friend of mine played keys, which is not a usual metal instrument, but added some sort of prog rock stuff onto the top of this metal band, which was quite fun. And there was one particular gig that I went to that he was playing, and the lead singer you're not always able to understand exactly what metal singers are saying. Like the lyrics aren't always beautifully enunciated, which is something that bugs me, but I guess it's a stylistic thing. But I was able to catch that the question that the lyric revolved around was, did you prefer pizza or anal?
I had a nickel.
I remember standing at the back of the gig thinking, I'm not sure. I guess pizza. So that was my experience of going to a metal gig.
It's good to me. You say it's a stylistic thing. I say they need a hug thing. Anyways.
If you could pick your ultimate, most over-the-top rock star rider, anything you want in the whole world, what would you put in it?
Not water.
Not water. I'd love to be cool and come up with outlandish stuff, but I suspect it'll just be a disgustingly large telly with some sort of football-based subscription, so I could watch any football I wanted, any time I wanted. I think having room for my dog as well would be fun. He's a large yellow Labrador and molts a lot, so maybe some sort of maid walking behind us, hoovering at all times, so that we don't ruin whatever. I'm far too conscientious. Like, I don't want to ruin stuff. I like things to be clean.
This is a rock star rider, John. You gotta.
I know. I make my own hotel bed. It's like I'm very organized and tidy. I think having endless amounts of cereal, hummus and dips, and a large television with which I can watch as much sport as I like would probably do it.
I think that was acceptable.
Does that include Australian rules football? Mm-hmm.
I've tried watching Aussie rules. I don't understand it. And I know they've all got very toned arms. They've got the cut-off things and the shortest shorts I've ever seen in my life.
Give me rugby players any day.
Hey!
No, I don't watch AFL for that. I watch AFL because it is high octane, it is hard, it is fast, it is just brutal. The way they will run it, however many kilometers an hour, and they just crash into each other and just pick up the ball and keep going. And it's not a round ball, and they're bouncing it as they're going. It's the same as a gridiron ball.
Indistinct amounts of steps. It's very strange. I mean, I'll get into any sport. I'll watch anything, but you're going to have to explain to me.
Okay, they can go about 10 steps. Yeah, okay. So every 10 steps or so, they have to bounce the ball, or it has to touch the ground. So if it's wet, they can bend down as they're running and touch the ground. Now, at the end of each field, there is 2 long, tall goalposts, right? That if you get it between those 2, it's 6 points. But if you get it between the 2 outer ones that are shorter, it's 1 point, and that's a behind.
But at no distinct height, right? Like in rugby, there's a horizontal bar that you have to get the ball over for it to count.
No distinct height.
Like 1 inch above the ground counts.
Yeah, like say 6 or 7 players in a scrum that are trying to get the ball right, and one player will sort of knock it out and then soccer the ball off the ground. And no joke, the ball will go like this, right? Zigzagging and then go through the goal. What just happened? What did we just see? This ball literally zigzagged its way into the goal. If it gets touched by the opponent as it goes into goal or before it goes in, it'll be behind. So it'll be 1 point, right? But they can't throw the ball. That's the thing. They can't throw the ball to each other. They have to sort of punch it. They have to handball it like this. It's not easy to play, but it is wonderful to watch when you get a really awesome game. And
it feels a bit like rugby union for people who couldn't give a fuck. Do you know what I mean? It's like, like I don't want all the rules. We'll do some of the rules. I'm like, I like some of the rules of rugby union. I can't be bothered.
But they like drop the ball to score a point. Like, I don't get that. What that to me is just laziness. Whereas in soccer, they can't touch the ball. They can't, and so you walk around going, "Oh no, I can't touch it." And then like they barely touch each other, and they're on the ground going, "Oh no, you kicked me." It's like, fuck off, dudes. Come and play AFL, and then talk to me. Because like in gridiron in American football, they're bloody stacked up to their heavens with their bloody armor. So anyway, sorry, we're gone way off topic.
But no, to answer your question, no, it would be the proper football. It would be
soccer.
So it would be proper football. I'm a Liverpool fan because that's where I spent a lot of time as a child.
Yeah.
And I get way too into it, and my children get upset because I'm watching a game that's not going well. And I'm better than I used to be. I used to sulk for days. Now it's more hours. But yeah, it would be football.
How were you after the World Cup?
Oh, see,
No, yes, yeah, well, Euros, World Cup.
Euros. Well, both. We had.
Euros, sorry. How were you after the Euros?
It's fine. The England stuff I used to get upset about as a kid. My first sort of England experience was the 1990 World Cup, which was a particularly painful one for England fans. But I don't get upset about England anymore. I'm a bit sort of past caring about England. I'll get into it if it's on, but it's not going to affect me. But yeah, the domestic Premier League does sort of dominate my life a little bit. But I've got it under control. I'm seeing someone. We're talking. It's fine.
Now, Caroline, you've reviewed the album this week, which my friend, longtime listener of the show, Drew, who you guys would have heard in the introduction to Around the World in 80 Plays. He's the bassist or the bassist, however you bassist. I don't know why I was going to say bass. I think it's because of the Bass Strait, which is in Australia, which is spelt the same way.
And sea bass, isn't it? And the fish.
And the sea bass, yes, but bass has an E on the end of it. So I'm nearly 40 in 6 months and I still can't fucking get it right. Anyways, I've done this show for 4 years. My point was, I kind of remember. Oh, yeah, you've heard Drew. He's the bassist on that theme song, Blue Sky. So go to tonistandtales.com and buy a copy and support Lizzie and Elfie's show, people, so they can buy Dolly some treats along the way. Anyways, Caroline, you have reviewed this album.
I have. And if you heard my podcast when I was with you, I have very little experience of any kind of metal, except where it's crossed over with musical theatre, because, you know, that's my jam. But I have listened to this album and I loved it. I really liked this. I wasn't sure at the start. You know, the first song, it starts off very atmospheric, and I think it's meant to sound like wind coming through windows and stuff, but it sounded to me like a kind of bad recorder group playing in a windy shed. But then the guitar gets in and the riff starts, and it's got a real beat to it. And then he starts singing. And like Jon just said, I think because we're storytellers through song, we like to hear what the words are. And this guy, he actually has pretty good diction for a metalhead singer type person. And so I was understanding the lyrics.
Tell us again you don't listen to metal, Caroline, without actually telling us you don't listen to metal.
I know. How can you tell?
I think it's because you pronounce the T in metal.
The metal. The metal
yeah.
head. So, you know, I know this is doom metal. I've done a little bit of research. This is doom / stoner metal. And so it's all got quite, you know, a depressing lyric. But actually, I feel like the kind of groove of a lot of the tunes is a much more uplifting piece of music than the lyrics would let you believe, really. I thought that quite a few of them are a bit of a bop. One of them, called Brotherhood of Sleep. I don't know if this was perhaps their inspiration, felt very Hamlet-y to me. It's like a big rock Hamlet kind of monologue. It still had a real kind of avant-garde, sort of off-the-wall feeling. And I think, like, you know, maybe if you were in a really avant-garde theatre troupe, you could put this as your soundtrack to a production of Hamlet. There was one song I thought, I mean, they really like their long intros, this band. People don't start, it's almost like you're in suspense. You're like, when are they going to start singing? Like 2 minutes in, mainly in a lot of the songs. There was one song that I loved called Chooser of the Slain. It's off like medieval, and you get taken to a load of different landscapes in it. And then like there's church bells in it. And I started to think, am I wrong in thinking there is a slightly tongue-in-cheek tone to doom metal? You know, they're not saying go out and be miserable and hate the world. They're saying this is what people who feel like that might enjoy to listen to. I don't know. It just feels all a little bit more upbeat than a doom-laden CD with CD. Look at me. How old am I? Would have me think. You know, is it like, you know, that you get those like sort of slasher movies? Is it that kind of idea that they're kind of so mad that they're funny? Do you know what I mean? I might be absolutely disrespecting the whole genre of metal. So I apologize if I am, but that's the way I'm sort of reading it. Then there was one song, I don't know if you got this from it, Jon, but there was a song called Food of the Gods. And I swear to God, if that is not a rejected song from Jesus Christ Superstar, I don't know what is. It absolutely feels like it could have been a song that Pontius Pilate would have sung when he's going crazy in his house or something like that. I thoroughly enjoyed this album. I'm not sure I'll ever listen to it again, but if I was made to, I wouldn't mind it. You know, I'd be like, okay, yeah, put it on. like I said, it just takes you on this massive journey from like churches and storms and battles to like beauty. There's this whole song about the summer solstice, but I think it's kind of like, let's die at the summer solstice, but it's still the summer solstice. It's still pretty. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed my experience of listening to it. I would say go and listen to it and decide for yourselves. That's but I liked it. I would give it, for what it is, I think, for what I take it to be, I'd give it 5 stars.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I loved his voice. I really liked the groove of a lot of the songs. And I was really happy that I could understand most of the words. I sound like such an old woman. Shut me up. Someone shut me up.
No, you don't sound old. I've got written here, not old, British. You sound very British. But anyway, we didn't say the name of the band or the album, which was my fault. I meant to say it before.
We didn't.
Which is Grand Magus and their album Momentum. Now, John, did you get a chance to listen to this album?
I did. A lot of it's in drop tunings, which I like, on the guitar. Yeah, I agree with everything Caroline said. It's atmospheric and cool and interesting. It is very much of its time. I mean, what was it, 2003? Is that what it was, or 5? So it's of that generation and of that era. A lot of the music that was happening then, from what I can remember, would just come out of that Limp Bizkit trying to put hip hop into rock thing, and trying to stick to their guns inside the genre is admirable. So I did enjoy it. It was fun. I listened to it on a drive, and I think I was probably driving too fast whilst listening to it, which is always a good sign for me of how much I'm enjoying music, because I'm getting excited by it.
A bad sign for society.
Absolutely.
A bad sign for society. Do not do that at home, kids. Now, what would you give it out of 5?
Well, I'm not an aficionado with this particular genre, so I mean, I'll go 4, because I'm not sure that there was anything particularly mind-blowing about it, but I did enjoy it. So there we go.
Yep. Now, I asked Drew for some notes on the band. So I asked him, what can you tell me about Grand Magus? And he goes, nah, cold. We're permanently on antihistamine. Sorry, that was something else. I love them and want their babies. Okay, it's a bit too much information. Hammer of the North is one of my favorite albums. Well, he could have mentioned that before. Also, Will's Return, Kingslayer, and 9 Killer Songs. They're Swedish. The earlier couple of albums aren't as good or polished. Again, Drew, you could have told me this before I picked the album blindly. Wolf's Return is great. More doomy classic metal than thrash. Singer is excellent. So more Black Sabbath than Anthrax and Metallica. And then I told him what I had for dinner. Which I had a meat pie and chips for dinner, though not from Greg's, because I am not in the UK and still haven't tried Greg's. Though they should totally sponsor Lizzie and Elfie show. They wear leather, which I could tell from their music, which sounded very codpiecey, very camp and that sort of thing. You sent me a picture of them. They have a new album out soon after quite a long break. Only a 3-piece. That's pretty rare for metal, in which I replied, that's more of a punk thing. Oh, I'm trying to work out if they're problematic, because Grand Magus is a KKK thing. I've never thought about it until now. Again, Drew, you could have told me this when you told me the fucking band. Oh my God. I think they're okay. It's just the kind of music.
No, I think, do you know what I think? It's Grand Magus is like a magus is like a really old fashioned word for like tribe leader or king or wizard. So they might have the same origins, but I doubt it would be from.
Yeah.
Like a swastika.
Yes, which is a Buddhist symbol.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's Grand Maguses in loads of different places that aren't all, scary people.
Grand Magus. I mean, it's also a Star Trek thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You sent me a video, Hammer of the North, of a performance, proud of their guts. So I clicked on this video presuming he was proud of, their ballsy performance nature. No, he was proud of their beer guts literally hanging over their jeans. So I was all in for that one. But their vocals were a bit rough live, which I've replied, oh, you mean literal guts, not musical. They used to be better singers. I'm sure I watched some other shows, blah, blah, blah. I ended up getting KFC. Anyways. Yeah, this was fun. This was fun. I thought Brotherhood of Sleep, I felt seen. As I say, it was very camp and leathery. It was scrappy. The vocals, yeah, they were good. They were so competent at their skills that I guess I wanted more from each song, because they did kind of drag on a little bit. That last song was 10 minutes. I don't have 10 minutes, kids. Goodness, I have to put up with that in musical theatre enough already as it is. But 10 minutes of a song that doesn't go many places, if anywhere, can be a little bit tedious. So I gave it 3.5 stars for that reason. It's their second album, so it's still really, really good. It's still a really strong effort. Just, yeah, I thought maybe it could have been a little less standard, a little less what you would expect.
Well, you know more about it than we do.
Oh, no, I know nothing.
Yeah, definitely far more.
No. I do these episodes. It's like doing a show. You do a show for 3 years and then a week later you've completely forgotten it because you've moved on to the next project. That's each episode I've moved on from the next metal album.
Right.
If you could adapt any musical theatre score with a doom metal vibe, which musical would you choose to make a doom metal musical?
Let's caveat that by saying not Sweeney Todd, because that's going to be everyone's go-to answer if we ask them this one.
I had the same thought process. That was the first one into my head, and I instantly dismissed it.
See?
Yeah, it doesn't just because it's metal music doesn't necessarily have to be gothic. I think the juxtaposition of something fun like Guys and Dolls with a rock metal thing under it would be quite fun, or one of the Rodgers and Hammersteins. I mean, the thing is, like Carousel. Take Carousel for example. Carousel is really dark. It's about domestic violence and it's about small town decline, and it's really, really dark, Carousel. But because it's Rodgers and Hammerstein, everyone thinks it's fun and up, and and I think the more interesting directors that do those things get the darker side of it. So maybe Carousel, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Could doom metal Carousel. Do you know what? Oh my God, how good would Billy Bigelow's soliloquy be? I mean, it's amazing anyway, but with a like massive guitar riff underneath it and like basically him screaming at the top of his head. That would be very cool. I'd like to see you do that, please, John.
Okay, deal. I'll get the guitar. Fine, we'll do it.
What would you do, Caroline?
I think I wouldn't go down like the gothic route. Like you say, it's too obvious for like Sweeney Todd or Little Shop of Horrors or something like that. I wonder if something like really bright and breezy would be quite fun just with that vibe, like something like Oliver. I mean, that's quite dark. That is quite dark. But, something like quite bright.
Super dark.
Something with like bright and cheesy...
Annie.
Not cheesy songs. Yeah, something with kids in. So then you have to get the kids being like real little rock stars as well, because I loved that in School of Rock. So something like that, or Annie, or Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Something just really fun that the kids could just have a load of fun with. I think that would be really nice.
The old bamboo.
Yes.
Yeah, I could see that. Cabaret.
Yeah.
Cabaret would be good.
Cabaret and doom metal.
Cabaret.
I mean, it's already doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Let's face it. However, on this topic, you might have heard by now, Caroline, my dream casting for Chicago.
I know what you're talking about.
Remind me what it is.
So I've got you as Roxy.
Thank you.
Diane as Velma. Nicole Faraday as Mama Matron Morton.
Yeah, she'd be amazing.
Neil as Billy Flynn.
Yeah.
And Michael, who I haven't met yet, obviously, but as Amos.
Yeah.
And then it was David Tuxton as Mary Sunshine, which puts you, John, in the ensemble. I'm so sorry.
I look good in tights. We're fine.
You can cover all the roles.
Yeah, that's it. That's my dream casting. One day, a producer is going to give me 10%. Anyways, we're going to move on. Let's move it on to an ad break because we're already 10 minutes over. It looks like he who seeks shall find the ad break, and we'll be back right after this. From the producers of Thrash and Treasure, around the world in 80 plays, starring the adorable Lizzie B and Alfie Parker, and featuring the star of the show, Dolly the dog, they'll take you for a trip around the UK, exploring the rich arts and cultural history. But here is a sneak peek.
Howdy! Welcome back to Around the World in 80 Plays. I'm Lizzie B and that's
Alfie Parker.
And we're joined as always by the winner of Pup Idol, Dolly the dog. Woof, woof. This week, Alfie leapt over to Dublin for the 11th stop of the Sister Act UK and Ireland tour, while I can now be found back in London at the Dominion Theatre for Sister Act the Musical's heavenly return to the West End stage. Because I have actually started rehearsals now. Who would have thought? Very exciting.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Felt like a lifetime away, and then all of a sudden, here I am. But yeah, all good. If this is your first time joining us, we're exploring the UK and Ireland's wonderful arts history and culture as we make our way from city to city with Sister Act the Musical, or at least that's what our producer tells us to say. So for this week's tour feature, we have decided that we're going to talk a bit about health and performing and being on tour, and kind of how stressful it can be to have to make health such a priority in our job, and kind of talk about our experiences with that. So, Alf, how's your health?
Ankle's still a bit sore, but yeah, touch wood. My health's okay. It is okay. I go through waves of trying to be good and then trying and then forgetting that I need to be good. Do you know what I mean? But being on tour is so... It just adds another element to that, because you can't just pop to your doctor or, I need to go to the dentist. Do you? Because you're in Ireland. Physio is another one where it's just hard. The company are always very good. And Tom, our company manager here on the tour with the office, they, if I said to them, I need to go and see a doctor, he'd make it work. Absolutely. But it's just another element of stress, isn't it? I don't know where I'm going. I don't know anyone. It all just adds to it. And the fact that we don't get a day off. I love the show, but I do think we get Sundays to travel and have a day off, and I think that is too much.
But yeah, it can just be really stressful when you get ill, because obviously health in our job is absolutely paramount. Like, we are in one of the only jobs in the world where even if you've got a slight cold, it might mean you can't go to work because you're ill. I personally struggle quite badly with anxiety towards my health, and get anxious about getting ill, anxious about having to have time off, all of that stuff. And it can be really mentally draining, because you kind of are beating yourself up for being ill, but you can't help being ill, it just happens. But when you love your job so much, it can be really, really stressful.
Alrighty, we're back with Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron. That's extra special guest co-host Caroline Sheen, and we're joined by West End Leading Lothario, Jon Robyns. Now, we have a fan question sent in this week. Are you known to be a corpser?
I have corpse. I don't think I'm one of the worst corpses that there are, but I've certainly had my moments. Simon Lipton and I were heckled by the audience to stop corpsing at one performance of Avenue Q because we lost it so badly. We stopped the show for probably 2 minutes.
Oh my God.
Someone from the audience shouted, "Get it together, boys," at us. So I've had my moments.
Was it the resident director?
No, but she did then come in and let us know that it was less than professional. I'm paraphrasing. So no, I don't think I'm a terrible corpser. I'm quite good at identifying people that are, and then twinkling at them subtly so that they corpse, which I quite enjoy. That's quite a fun part of what we do. Kaz, are you?
Yeah, I was going to say, if I'm asked if I'm a corpser, I usually say I'm a twinkler. I think people always go, "You just got this twinkle," and she's just patted in. Who's my dog? Sorry. Yeah, no. So yeah, people say I've got this kind of twinkle that makes them laugh, and then once they laugh, then I will laugh. But I do try and do it very subtly.
Yeah.
But whether the people I've worked with will tell you it's subtle is another matter.
I always think the game with that sort of thing, I mean, I don't know if this is the same internationally with all places and territories of theatre. Certainly in the UK, there is a last matinee thing where on the last matinee of a run or of a cast before cast change, people do fun jokes and take the show slightly less seriously. And I always think that the funniest ones of those and the ones that work best are the ones that the audience don't notice and don't affect the show. You can get away with that, then it's joyous. There is obviously a line and people do cross the line and go too far. But if you can put a little thing in that amuses your group and the audience are none none the wiser, then that's just that's chef's kiss, that sort of thing.
That's the skill of it, isn't it? That's the skill, is that if the audience come and they think they've seen the exact same show that the person is watching last night or the night coming, then that's the joy. Whereas the cast have had this amazing little secret thing of like passing a potato round, something really tiny and silly, but just keeps you amused for that last matinee. But nobody would have a clue in the audience. That's the skill. That's, like you say, the chef's kiss. I don't know if I've always succeeded at that.
Well, no, me neither. But some of my favourites were when I was playing Marius. After Eponine dies on the barricade, he usually takes her hat and puts it in his tricolour and wears it in her honor. But I'd actually put it on and wore it for the rest of the barricade scene, and that would be a completely legitimate dramatic choice.
Oh, I love that.
It's such a little thing, but
Yeah.
everyone on stage knows that that's wrong and is laughing. So it's just that sort of cute little stuff I really enjoy. But no, twinkling is fun.
My final matinee as Fontaine, the customer she decides to take on, her first customer when she becomes a prostitute, he's meant to stand there and, hold his hand out. And he who shall not be named stood there and was wearing a big sort of coat, very little on underneath, except a picture of Alfie Boe stuck to his groin. And everybody behind me, all the halls were just like in hysterics. And I was like, I've got to keep this absolutely bang on. And I managed it, but it was very, very funny. But like you say, the audience wouldn't have seen it. They might have seen prostitutes laughing, but they're being drunk anyway, So it's little things like that you can just about get away with. I sound ever so unprofessional now. But
No. That's the sort of thing that you got to keep going.
After a year in a show, things like that are something you look forward to, aren't they, really?
Killian Donnelly's last matinee of Memphis, he left the job early to go and do Kinky Boots. And we as a company decided that we would mess him up on his last matinee because it's just him. There is a point in Memphis where the Huey character is putting away microphone equipment, and there's a box, and the box has a lid that opens so that the audience only see the top of the box. So you open it up and only the people on stage can see the underside of the lid. So on the underside of the lid, we made a large poster that had all of us naked with our bums in order of skin color across the paint, like a paint sample, and just so all of us mooning him all at the same time. And when he opened it, only he could see it and the audience couldn't. He held it together well until he came off stage. That was a fun last matinee gag.
That's excellent. That takes effort as well, doesn't it? That's very good.
Oh, the best ones are the ones that are meticulously planned. Those are the good ones.
Yeah. I have another fan question for you. I don't know who it's from and why they would know this.
Is it from Mike? Is it from Mike?
I don't know who would possibly ask this question. I don't know. It says, what rugby team do you support, Wales or England?
Oh, I don't know. Come on. You know that I'm torn in this world. Look, I'm not Welsh, okay? I'm not Welsh. My wife tells me off for saying that I'm Welsh. I'm not Welsh. I'd lived in Cardiff for 3 years and they were incredibly special to me, informative to who I am. But I am English, and so I'll go England.
Oh, that's fair enough. I think it's fair enough.
I have an affinity and a love. I sung at all the Welsh games in the '99 World Cup, and I've sung in Welsh choirs and those sorts of things. So
you've probably sung more stuff in Wales than me.
Maybe. Probably not. You're a national treasure.
I've never sung at a rugby game. I would love to. That's one of my bucket list moments. Sing the national anthem at a rugby game. That would be amazing. So, yeah, put it out there.
Oh, wonderful.
Anyone listening?
Speaking of which, before we started recording, we're talking about the Olympics, and I've been watching all these past opening ceremonies. I put on the start of the Sydney 2000 Olympics. So I'm already, it's Australia. I remember I was 15 years old when this was on. And then the announcer goes, and now the Australian national anthem. And one of our past guests walked out, Phil Burton from a band called Human Nature, and they came out and sang the fucking national anthem. And I sat here and just cried like a bloody wuss because I was like, what a beautiful moment. And because I get so emotionally swept up in all these ceremonies anyways, because it's all very artistic. It's arts and sport. I love sport as much as I love arts, and so to see them come together and like having Les Mis and Gojira metal and musical at the French opening ceremony was just hello. That was for this show. clearly.
At
To walk out and sing the national anthem.
the Olympic Games, I mean, that's not one sport, is it? That's all the sports all together. That is incredible. In front of your home audience as well.
Yep, in your home city.
That must just be astounding. Yeah.
And not only that, we hadn't had the Olympics for 44 years. Like 56 was the last time. So what that must have been like. I've been watching every opening and closing ceremony in my lifetime.
Oh, wow.
Well, actually, I started with Los Angeles. So from when I was conceived, because that was about when I was conceived, must have been Australia won gold. But anyways, I want to think about that. Let's not.
So which is the best opening ceremony so far?
Oh, Sydney all the way. Come on.
I mean, what would we say, John? What would we say?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm supposed to say London, but I think Beijing was the most well-organised, sort of so precise, I was a bit scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for vibes, definitely London for me, because it was just so much fun.
I will say it had nothing to do with the actual games, but living in London and working in London during the Olympics was the nicest London has ever been in my lifetime.
It really was, wasn't it? Yeah.
We actually saw blue sky. We saw blue sky over here and we're like, what? Is this London? Sorry, I'm teasing.
It was quite good weather, wasn't it, from what I remember?
It was amazing, but we were told to expect carnage. We were told to expect that everything was going to be disorganized and dirty and no one would be able to get anywhere. And they had those, 100,000 volunteers or something around the city.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was clean and well organized and gorgeous, and I loved it.
Yep. Do remember it because Spice Girls performed and the Queen jumping out of a helicopter. But I'll say Lillehammer 94. If you check out that opening ceremony, it's like literally out in the snow, in the cold, and it's all sort of very traditional with their performances more than it is special effects. But it was just really charming for that reason. So
that's the Olympic Games that broke my heart. That is, Torvill and Dean came back and they didn't win. They were treated very badly.
Should have just left it.
I was devastated.
Also, the Olympics have broke Nancy Kerrigan's knee, but we shouldn't go there.
Yeah, it was. That was the same one. Yeah. And she still came second. Amazing.
Anyway, speaking of Australia, I have never heard the expression corpser. I think we say we cracked, like...
All right.
Or we broke.
From what I understand, it comes from a Shakespearean acting term when a character would die and be a corpse on stage. It was the job of the rest of the company to try and make that corpse laugh, which is where that phrase comes from. Very professional.
So it goes back hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Because we have expressions like chukkers, I'm sure you guys know.
Chicken?
Chukkers.
I don't know where it comes from, though.
Oh, chukkers is good luck.
I know it's an Australian thing for good luck, isn't it? So where does that come from?
It technically means full house, like have a full house.
Oh, right, okay.
Chook in Australia is actually a chicken.
Yeah, that's why I thought chicken. I thought you just said chicken.
Yeah, I thought about chicken.
Like, what's for dinner, Mum? Oh, we're having a roast chook. That's a common thing to say. So, chookers. And another expression, bump in and bump out. That's not a euphemism for anything. That's what you guys would call a get in and get out.
Oh.
Oh. And in America, it's load in and load out.
Well, they all sound pretty kinky, if you ask me. Anyways, we're going to move on to the musical definitely now. And this week, I've chosen a musical which John co-wrote, Then, Now, and Next, Oxford, Pending, and I've reviewed it this week. Look over there.
It's very brave. It's very brave to read a review to the writer. I'm impressed. Let's go.
Our job is easy. As I say, it's you're coming into our house. We're like, now on this show, we're going to review your work. Anyways, we're going to get into this now. When first undertaking this musical written by John and friends, I didn't know this was his first musical produced. So putting on my nice critic hat, I urged Spotify to begin, and even in the opening bars did the title sink in, Oxford, Pending, as it became clear that it's about time. No, I don't mean the 2 years it took to record this episode. I mean the vibe tells me this is about one's time on Earth, in life and love. Oxford, not pending. Anyways, the subtle, nuanced forehander progressed with a sweet, almost folky tone as some nerd talks about Lord of the Rings in a song called I Propose. Oh, I get it. Lord of the Engagement Ring. Peter Hanna's charming British twang sells the song's tone perfectly. However, I'm not here to judge performance. As for story, by the fourth song, I'm coming to terms with a lack of clarity in narrative, and no, not because I'm distracted. That's track 5's job, because apparently, according to one review, this is told in a non-linear way. Cool. Now, knowing that, I am able to enjoy the songs a lot more as an almost song cycle with clear influences from Avenue Q, Jason Robert Brown, Duncan Sheik, and maybe even a dash of 70s era Sondheim with a gender swapped retrospective vibe more than introspective. These songs are touching, if lacking a unique humor, but the album as a whole does create a thorough and well-connected voice. 4 stars, a very touchingly personal debut, and as I said, look, I was a little bit confused because obviously it's a non-linear telling, so that's going to come across in listening.
Listening to it cold, I can understand. I mean, I sent it to a friend of mine who's in the States, and she said, "Oh, I really want to hear the album." So I was like, "Okay, well, it's on Spotify and all those sorts of things." And she listened to it, and then she went, "I like it. I just don't know what's going on. Can you send me the script?" I was like, "Right, that's fair enough." So you're not alone there. I mean, you're right. It is 2 relationships, one in her 20s and one in her 40s, and they're told at the same time out of chronological order. So I can understand that it is very confusing if you don't know which of the guys dies, or at what point in her grieving process she is, or what happens in her life in terms of a linear progression. But the interesting thing about the staging of it is that you can show both relationships at different points in her life and different mentalities that she's got right next to each other. So you can be really clear with, she was like this, she is like that, she is going to be like this later. So in terms of a narrative, it works, but in terms of an album, I can understand that it would be, I don't know what's happening here, but I'm glad that you enjoyed the music.
It's the same with listening to a metal album, and this is something that gets brought up all the time, is especially by my co-hosts, that it was hard for them to judge a musical album because they're not seeing it. But I don't agree, because you're selling us a concept, you're selling us a story, obviously, and therefore you're selling us a vibe, a voice. And was that successful in the music? Because at the end of the day, these are musicals. It's usually the music people hear first. It used to be songs on the radio. It used to be, they became singles, and people would hear Hey Big Spender and then want to see Sweet Charity because of this hit song, or Hello Dolly, or whatever it was that sort of drew people. It was always the music. There was no context for story. They didn't know what Hello Dolly was about, but they just had to hear from that hit song, or like New York, New York, or whatever it was. That big one they did recently, where it was sort of the main focus was on that big one song that everyone knows. And even like the Neil Diamond one, they do apologize, Caroline, I really do. They do that song 5 times. I know, 5 times.
God, why?
Just to appease the audience, because everyone's singing along. That's why.
As a listener, as a musical theatre fan, I'm always torn about when I listen to new musical theatre albums, and I do search them out regularly to try and stay up to date with what is actually happening. But also, I love new writing. I genuinely love it. And sometimes I'm of the opinion that the album should tell me exactly what's happening in the story. And sometimes I'm of the opinion of, it doesn't matter what's happening in the story as long as I understand what's going on in the song.
Yeah.
And some shows, you listen to the album first, and then when you see the actual production, it fills in the gaps. And sometimes I purposely don't listen to a show that I know I'm going to go and see so that I can take it all in as one go. But they're sort of different. They're different judging mentalities, aren't they? Judging an album and judging a show are very different things.
Yeah, you're seeing a show though, that's not the definitive, even then like the album isn't the definitive performance, but you're seeing the show, you're seeing a production, you're seeing performance, you're seeing a director's vision. But then you go to another theater in another state or another city or whatever, and you're going to see that same show in a completely different way. Look at Sunset Boulevard is running in 2 countries, or will obviously open in New York soon, but it's running in Australia at the moment. 2 very different productions, 2 very different perspectives of that same musical.
Yeah.
Usually there's a composer behind it whose work I'm able to look at, like Duncan Sheik. I know a Duncan Sheik musical. As soon as you turn it on, there is a certain vibe to it. So whilst I didn't have your work to be able to go back on and look to find your voice, so I can't say whether or not your voice was in it, that retrospective vibe that you're selling me in the concept, was there in the music?
My co-writer and I, Chris J. Orton, and I were very keen to have it feel like all of the songs fit stylistically. It's always distracting when a show has so many different styles, not just in terms of the genre of it, but in terms of the feel of it and the vibe of it, that it can be, disorientating. But we were trying to make sure that it all sounded like it belonged together, which I think is quite a comforting thing to have when you listen to any musical theatre album. I mean, like you say, you can tell what a Jason Robert Brown musical sounds like. You can tell what a Sondheim musical sounds like, or a Lloyd Webber, or any of the big hitters. But are you able to differentiate what an Andrew Lipper from a William Finn sounds like?
Yes.
If you're able to differentiate those, then you're really listening, which I really enjoy.
Yep, I've had Andrew Lipper on this show, and William Finn should fucking come on this show. Oh my god, sorry.
I have another tiny little link for you there if you're interested.
Yeah.
In that Chris J. Orton, who wrote that musical with John, was taught by none other than another John Sheen, who's my dad.
Oh wow.
So my dad was his head teacher in primary school. So I've known Chris since he was probably, I think they moved there. I think he was like 6 or 7 when he was there. So yeah, that's a sort of random little connection as well. And that's also just shows you how small Wales is. So there's that
I was going
too.
to say, yeah, the Welsh theatrical community is tight.
It's teeny tiny.
Because I nearly went with Roadshow for the album.
Ah.
I don't think it's actually on your Wikipedia page, this musical. I like it's right down the bottom or something like that. Like it wasn't in the bio information.
Right.
I don't think. I can't remember. Either way, when I found out, I'm like, oh, yes, all right, we'll do this one. And then when I asked Caroline if she was free to do today, because obviously at the moment it's like 7 a.m. in New York City where my co-hosts live, and she wasn't available on Wednesday. And I'm like, all right, well, this is one time that I actually can ask the guest, can we move the time?
Yeah.
Because I usually can't. I have to accept whatever time we get, and I work with it. So it was meant to be. There you go. How weird is that? All these weird connections.
And also, Kaz and I don't actually live that far apart from each other geographically either, so it's even easier for you.
I can practically hear him.
Oh, there you go. Now, just also throwing in about corpsing, maybe doing Chicago with Diane is a terrible idea, Caroline. I don't know if I could trust you to.
It would be terrible.
No way now.
I'm telling you now, it would be terrible.
Drunk Chicago. It'll be Drunk Chicago.
There you go.
There we go. It'll be a new yearly event.
Everything needs a new angle these days.
Yeah. That's it. Anyways, no, okay. So yeah, look, sort of doing this production, I guess now it would be a matter of, is there any more work that you're going to do with it, that you've done a production or?
Possibly the producer that put it on owns it for another year, so it's sort of up to him what he does with it. Then we'll see. I feel as though because it's a chamber musical, there is scope for it to be done on a small scale and a small budget. Purposely, we wrote it for 5 actors and 5 musicians and doesn't need a set. We had one eye on getting it produced when we were writing it, so very possibly. But having been a writer in this world now, as well as an actor, you realise how little control the writer actually has until they're Sondheim, and then they probably have lots of control. But I would imagine Sondheim had very little control over West Side Story.
And none over Gypsy.
Right. So, you realise that the writer might get a lot of the kudos for coming up with the ideas and moving people with their lyrics and music, but in terms of the productions, very little to say.
It would be a surprise to a lot of people because they sort of think that that's where it stems from, that the writer, they look at someone like J.K. Rowling. Ugh, I hate to mention her name. Anyways, but they've seen that the power that she's had in terms of dictating the film series and everything that happened with her property. But it doesn't happen like that for many writers at all.
No, but also she had none of that power for 20 years when she was trying to get it published. It wasn't she wrote it, sent it, and immediately became richer than the Queen. She was, spent however many decades trying to get this thing done. So people think overnight success. They don't think about it in terms of the larger context of the life of a writer. But hopefully I will write more things. We're currently writing other things. If we get to step up the leagues, then we'll see. And I might get to call some shots later. But right now, no, I don't get to call any shots.
Just a correction there. J.K. Molding.
What?
JK's what? Molding.
Molding, yeah.
What?
Because there's a photo of her house in the background. There's like a whole bunch of black mold on her wall. And so she's been dragged through the mud, living in a castle that's moldy. So, anyways, thanks, Joanne. We're going to move on. Caroline, very quickly.
Hi.
What did you think of this musical? Did you get to see it live?
I didn't, unfortunately. I can't remember the reason why, but it was a good reason. So I promise that, John, whatever it was a good reason. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to it, and I just listened to it with pride, knowing that my pal had written it and Chris as well. And, you know, when I listen to a musical theatre album, I'm listening to the lyrics and to the story and to the growth of the song and the structure of it. And I just think I was listening to somebody who's totally on the same wavelength as me with what they want in a song, you know. And also I'm listening to the performances, and obviously Alice is phenomenal in it. But I didn't know the other two performers, Peter and Joaquin or something.
Joaquin, yeah.
I always really like discovering new voices that I enjoy and like new performers that I enjoy. So I was thrilled to sort of hear their work as well and what they gave to it. And I understood that there was, you know, a non-linear timeline going on, and I just sort of let that happen. Do you know what I mean? I'm still not, I was making up my own mind what was going on. I have no idea if I was correct or not. So when it's done again, I'll have to find out. Or send me the script, John.
I will send you the script.
I just really enjoyed it. I thought a lot of the wordplay was like super clever, and it's just really exciting. I love, you know, I'm a big supporter of new musicals, and I love listening to things that you think, oh, there's going to be a big future for these people. And yeah, I just big congratulations, John. I was really, really impressed. And I think it takes a lot to get off your ass and write a show and put your creativity down on paper when you've spent your whole career doing stuff other people have written. It's a big deal to go, oh, am I confident enough to do this? So I have utmost respect for that as well.
Thanks, Cass. I'll send you the script. You can have a look at what's going on.
Yeah, do. I'd love to read it. Did it work out? I know you're saying you sort of didn't have any control, but when you saw the production, was it what you had envisaged?
Yes and no. I mean, it was the general form of it, but it's like we made a building and then everyone else came and painted it. And It's like, oh, it's not the color I would have chosen for that wall, but it's still the same wall. But again, as the writer, you have to realize that you have given a lot of other artists the opportunity to collaborate on something. And out of respect to those other artists, you have to let them in, no matter what you think should happen. When we gave it to the director, the MD, the choreographer, the cast, there has to be room for them. Otherwise, I'd do it as a one-man show and I can have it exactly as I wanted. And I didn't want to do that. And so was it exactly like I thought it was going to be? No, but I suspect there were just as many better additions as there were compromises.
Did you choose the team? Like, obviously, because the director was your Kate monster. It was Julie Atherton, who's, you know, an incredible musical theatre performer and is branching out into directing. Was that your choice or recommendation? Or
it was our choice, yeah.
Oh, fab, lovely.
Yeah. I mean, we workshopped it. We had a dramaturg, Kate Golich, who I assume you know, did it for us for a couple of years and was very good at setting questions for us to answer and deadlines for us to meet, which is important because writing can meander on forever unless you put a structure around it, I've discovered. And it was also very important that two men were writing a female protagonist and we needed female voices involved in this production. So we were only considering female directors, and there aren't enough of them that are recognised and given the work in this country anyway. So we thought it was important that we had a female voice in the helm to realise this in its final step. We chose Julie. We let her choose the rest of the creative team because once you hand it over to a director, it has to be their production. Otherwise, why are you bothering? I'll direct it, you know. We also had Alice attached all the way from the very first demos all the way through the workshop and development stages into the production. So we knew we were going to use Alice, and she had as much to do with developing that character in terms of feedback to us as we did writing it. So she was sort of, you know, a creative as well. But it became something very different. I mean, I never thought I'd be so pissed off about paraphrasing as I was. Like when an actor paraphrases a line, I've spent 2 years picking exactly the right words for that. Yeah. You know, I had to get over myself quite quickly with it's okay, it's the audience still get it.
Did they do any last matinee gag? Or did you not watch?
No, I watched both shows on the last day. No, I don't think they did. Or if they did, I didn't notice, and that's the joy of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so they did it well.
Yeah.
They did it well, yeah. I mean, it was the Southwark Playhouse, which is only like 230 seater, so you're going to see everything. But it was amazing watching it come to life through other people's voices and physicalities. Because as an actor, I know how I'm going to interpret something. At least I think I know how I'm going to interpret something. It's interesting to see how other people will do it.
Yeah. On opening night, did you cry?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
More for the event.
Yeah. Like, and proud, and you accomplished something.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, as an actor, the thing you do is live and it's for that moment and then it's gone forever. As a writer, you are contributing to the canon. So it's something that exists past your involvement. And, you know, students will get hold of the music and practice it for their college auditions and all that sort of stuff. And so, you know, it goes into other people's minds and exists forever. And that's sort of a thing that is hard to get your head around, but is certainly something I'm proud of. And also, I wasn't performing opening night, so I could actually allow myself to indulge. Like, I don't know if you feel like this too, Caroline, but when you're performing, you're working, you've got a job to do. So I don't allow my brain to go to feeling the event. I just have to get on with the game, you know?
Yeah.
As the writer, no one wants you to be involved in the game. They want you to sit at the sideline and watch.
Yeah.
So your only choice is to get involved in the event.
It's like, because when I was doing Plaza Suite, I was watching the press night, which is something I've never watched a press night that I'm employed to be in as an actor. Even though obviously I wasn't on stage, I was quite nervous, but it was really strange being at a press night of something I was in, and I really enjoyed not having to be in it.
I just want to clarify, because obviously I produce a show that's about the British theatre industry and touring and all that. Press night is your opening night, yes? Like the red carpet gala event?
Yes.
Okay, so we call it an opening night here, whereas the pressing is like they will do a certain number of songs just for the press to film things, and then they'll interview the cast. Like it's a whole different event.
Ah, right, okay. Yeah, no, with us, it's an opening night, it's a press night, it's the gala night, it's everything all rolled into one. Usually on the big shows, like the press will have all come in the last few previews. So when you're performing your press night, the press have already written their previews, especially now that there's the internet and there was a big opening night last night of Why Am I So Single, the new musical from the Six Writers.
Mm-hmm.
And all the reviews dropped at midnight.
Yeah.
And that's because they were all written 4 or 5 days ago rather than last night. Whereas it used to be they would sort of drop over the next few days, but now they're all out. It's slightly horrifying.
Yeah.
The reviewing world has been changed monumentally by the internet and social media, and you know, people reviewing it by themselves on their own sites and being used as quotable reviews, whereas 30 years ago, the previous generation, there were maybe 6 print media people that were considered the reviewers, and those were the guys that you needed to get in. But like Caroline says, people review it whenever the hell they like now. So as a professional reviewer, Aaron, is that something that you feel has diluted or distilled what you do?
I don't know if I can answer because you just called me professional reviewer. Wow, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, no, well, I'm not technically a professional reviewer. I just I'm a comedy writer. I just found myself reviewing music. But I do have a friend, Brian, who's a film critic from Minnesota, a professional film critic. He was actually telling me recently that a certain film studio, which I'm not going to name because I want to be able to book guests.
Yeah, don't want to get sued, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to get sued. They have stopped sending him invites to screenings because they're favoring sending those invites to influencers because they are guaranteed to get the 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
Just like a standing ovation means nothing, a 5-star review will soon mean nothing as well, which I think it's sad. It's sad for the artist who then will read that and go, wow, I got a 5-star review, not realizing like that was literally bought and paid for. That's not a good feeling, kids. That's not a good feeling because,
it's a funny thing in this country as opposed to somewhere like Broadway. I mean, I've never worked on Broadway, and you've worked in America, Caroline, but in this country, the reviewers aren't quite as lauded as they are on Broadway. A terrible bunch of reviews in the West End is not necessarily going to close a show, and similarly, rave reviews are not going to keep it open. Whereas in the States, I believe it has more sway.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether that's still the case.
Yeah, it used to be the New York Times, didn't it? If the New York Times
Ben Brantley
didn't like your show, you wouldn't last more than a month. But yeah, you're right. Like over here, Les Mis had horrendous reviews when that first opened, and it's still going, however many years later. It does. They have respect. People respect them, but I think people also go, do you know what? I'm going to go and make up my own mind about that if I'm interested enough in the idea of the play or the shows. And I think that's where I draw the line with reviews. If I feel like they've been written by somebody whose opinion matters to me, or who I have respect for, or who I've read, like there used to be a reviewer called Charles Spencer who wrote for The Telegraph. And if I went to see something and then I read his review of it, it was quite often a similar opinion of the show that I had come to the conclusion of as well. So he was my sort of linchpin. I would like, if he likes it, then it's probably quite good, or vice versa. But then sometimes I was totally different to him. But I do think because you had those people going to see them all the time, in one way you sort of were guided by them. And now I think that's not a bad thing that that's been diluted somewhat. But at the same time, you have to then decide who you want to be guided by. Do you want to be guided by these people who are the influencers, who are being paid to go to see the show and being paid to say nice things about it, or just giving it for free or whatever? Or do you want somebody to go and see it whose opinion you follow, you value, and then you'll make up your mind? Or do you just want to make up your own mind and go and see it anyway? I think that's probably what I would land on. Yeah.
Does something literally just look interesting to you or sound interesting and might sound funny? That's the reason to see something more, I think, than someone on the internet saying, I saw this and I liked it. Like, I get there's influential people. There has been influential people for as long as there's been people. Bible is filled with influential figures, quote unquote. You know, Jesus is like literally the most famous of them. He wasn't a magician. He was just an influencer. Stop. I'm sorry, Christians. You're going to come after me now. I'm so sorry. Why am I ranting?
No, well, it's fine. I love it. But the interesting thing about theatre is that you have to leave your house to do it. So if you're going to be an audience member, you know, if you're anything on screen comes to you, in theatre, you have to go to it, which means you have to put effort in, which makes me respectful of audiences and doubles down on the responsibility I've put on myself for my job, because people have left their homes, arranged babysitting, arranged dog sitting, spent money on traveling to get there. It requires you to deliver for them what they want. And there are different types of audiences. And when you're talking about what does an audience want, I mean, that's too simple a question. What you're talking about, it splits into what does this show deliver and who do we expect to come and see it? And then after that, what you put out into the world on the social media side of things and the reviewers and the influencers and all that kind of stuff, then it goes to what group of people, what demographic are really going to respond to this. Like Hadestown, for example, right? Hadestown opened at the National. That has a certain type of patronage, people that are going to go and see whatever's at the National, no matter whether it's good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. They're going to go and see it, right? When it goes into a more commercial setting, you have to get people who have never heard of it to come and see it and don't usually go to theatre necessarily to come and see it. And it's not based on something that they necessarily understand or know, whereas Back to the Future is something people know and will go and see. So those are very different types of audiences and get reviewed in very different ways, and also cover different types of theatre. You know, are you going for crowd pleasing or are you going for artistically deep? And those are very different things. And again, will be reviewed in very different ways.
But I also think they can exist together.
Of course they can. Of course they can. And you would hope they do.
Yeah. We presume that they can't. I don't know why. Like it's like there's blockbuster cinema and independent cinema.
Avengers Endgame was a brilliantly written script, right?
Yeah.
But it was one of the biggest hit movies of all time. So you can, of course, have both. But I would say that those are the exceptions to have genuinely artistic respect and critical respect.
Yeah.
Like we can all name 20 musicals that have both, but the majority of shows don't. So it is interesting from an audience.
When you're sitting there writing the show with Kit, are you going, I'm writing this for me? I'm writing this for the audience, or you're writing it for the critic?
Well, I'm never writing for
and
a critic.
I'm guessing it's not the critic.
Never writing for a critic. No,
Yeah.
I'm not writing for a critic. I'm writing for how clear can I make this story that I want to tell resonate in someone else's brain. Like that is the only thing that's in my head when I'm writing. But how people receive things is not controlled by you. People have their own experiences in their own life, and they've had a terrible or brilliant day. So that will make a difference to how they absorb something. So I think trying to second guess who you're writing it for is not always the most helpful thing. Ultimately, you just want to serve the story that you're coming up with and hope that it gets to people.
That was one of the main things you sold it on, wasn't it? That it was an original story in an original musical. That was one of the main sort of selling points of it, really, because so little stuff out there now is original.
Little stuff, full stop. I mean, all of Rodgers and Hammerstein's stuff is based on something else.
Yeah.
Most musicals are based on something else. I mean, I can only name maybe 5.
Shakespeare was based on other stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
A Little Night Music is based on a German film, isn't it?
Right.
Swedish film.
Like Company is not based on anything else, I don't think. Someone can correct me with that if I'm wrong.
Yeah, based on my trauma.
Avenue Q is not based on anything else, but Wicked is, and Spamalot is, and Phantom is, and Les Mis is. They're all adaptations of other things. Adapting something is a different skill. We're doing that at the moment. We are writing an adaptation of original source material, which is a very different writing challenge to coming up with stuff off the top of your head, and you can take it wherever the hell you like. And we can make, like, the first draft of the character, the first draft of the show, we let certain people read it, and the only answer came back was, I hate the protagonist. We don't like her. She's not nice. We don't like her. So
yeah.
So it's not the Toniston Tales then.
It's
No.
No, but so it means we can get in there and change who she is fundamentally, whereas with existing source material you probably can't do that as much.
Also, you don't need to like an antagonist, people. A protagonist. Like,
no, absolutely.
As much as you don't have to hate a villain, we love Disney villains. Anyway, just one more question. We're going to move it on because we're running way over time now, literally half an hour over. I'm so sorry to you both. If you could write a musical about a theme park ride and ride a theme park ride based on a musical, what would they be?
Is this based on the Phantom thing that's happened recently? That they have done a roller coaster ride based on Phantom.
Oh, have they? Oh, no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
This is just based on I love playing Planet Coaster, the video game.
If I could base a roller coaster on a show, Big Fish, anything Burton or possibly Moulin Rouge, anything that's sort of visually spectacular, I think would be fun. And what was the other part of it? If you could
write a musical based on a theme park ride.
I don't know enough theme park ride. The ones that drop, they're fun.
They're my favourite ones.
Yeah, there's one. It's one called Oblivion in the UK that just is the longest vertical drop in the world. That was quite fun. So I think, although you need a lot of sopranos for the screaming chorus.
Oblivion the musical would definitely be doom metal, wouldn't it?
There you go. See, link it up.
Look at that for a circular response. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet, because they own her. But where's the Mary Poppins ride? Where's that? How great would that be?
It would be great. There was the great movie ride that had a scene from Mary Poppins.
Yeah, but they were just like waving like that, like little lacy weirdos. I would love to, do the whole sort of beginning and then like jump into a brightly coloured painting and then do the laughing thing. The whole film could be an amazing ride. So I would do that one. And then if I was to base one on, I think Tower of Terror, the musical, would be pretty cool. Doom metal again. That's going to be my favourite genre of musical now. Doom metal musical over the Tower of Terror. Like you say, loads of coloratura sopranos going,
Wow. I would love to ride a ride based on MAME. So it could be like a boat ride and you go up to the moon. So you go like up into the stars and sort of go on really wacky adventures in the boat, even though it's sort of not really a big famous, or like The Wizard of Oz or Wicked, which are opening a Wizard of Oz land at Warner Brothers Movie World in Australia. Anyways, it seems that was then, this is now, and next is an ad break. G'day listeners, Aaron here, and we're back with another round of Bloop Network news, and this time I'm joined by Lizzie B, direct from the West End. How you going, love?
All good. How are you?
All good, babes?
That was very good. Very, very good.
Thank you so much. Actually, Jon Robyns, who is in this episode, he teaches me a Liverpudlian expression. They do that there, don't they?
I'm not sure if you should be doing that, Aaron. That wasn't great.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. This episode is stacked to the heavens with West End icons. So, and they complimented me on my attempt at a Welsh accent, and you are tearing me down. Anyways,
I've known you for longer, so I'm allowed to be more honest.
you are, and I did comment before of your photo. I've seen that horror movie before.
Exactly. So payback.
On to our Bloop news this week on what everyone's been up to. So, Lizzie, you've got Spencer's news. What's he been up to?
Spencer is up to some things, but he's not allowed to announce them yet.
Ooh.
So watch this space for exciting news from Spencer.
Very excited for our young Spencer there. And also on TNT is Mr. J-Wags. Now, he's got his Second City production that is on every second Monday, which is called The Second City Presents, where they'll have a special guest from TV, radio, film, theatre come in, and they will tell a story, sing a song, and then the improv troupe has to then improvise a story based on that. And Jonathan is the assistant musical director and their songwriter. He's also got his YouTube show, The Dohio. So if you like sumo wrestling, which is totally random but amazing to watch, check out his show on YouTube, The Dohio, for hot sumo talk. And also, if you love his work, then you can check out his musical, Sarah and the Seed, which he has written with his life partner, Juliet. All the details in there and how to support that musical on sarahandtheseed.com. And Lizzie, this week, what did Alfie do?
Yeah, to be fair, I'm less interested in Alfie than the dog, so that's just how it goes. But also, Alfie is up to anything. So.
Oh, well, that's shame, shame, shame. Now, my news. I have a little bit of news this week. Obviously, you can buy my books, The Tonniston Tales. You can read The Tonniston Tales and let them know how adequately written they were. But this week, I have some good news. If you have been paying attention to our news reports and our banter at the start of Thrash and Treasure, you'll know that it has been 3 months or something that I have been trying to go and get my spine x-rayed. And I haven't been able to because of the Medicare card fiasco, which it would have taken me a whole 2.5, 3 hours just to go. That's if I didn't get stuck in a long line, just to go get a replacement card because I had lost my wallet. Anyways, the other day, taking Belle to the vet, my puppy dog, which I will talk about more in a second, I randomly found my wallet in the back of my dad's car. So I was able to finally get my x-ray on my spine, and I find out my results tomorrow, which is actually today. It's 4 a.m. in Australia. So my doctor will be calling me and I will probably be asleep. However, as I mentioned, unfortunately, my beautiful puppy dog, which actually debuted in your episode, Lizzie, she had been whimpering a little bit lately every time she tries to stand up. You could tell her back legs, something was wrong, and she was limping, and we took her to the vet, and she needs a hip replacement. So my poor little baby girl, but the vet won't operate on her now because she does weigh a little bit too much because we spoil her and feed her way too much. My mum will sit there and give her bits of cake and donuts and things like that, biscuits and like human biscuits, not dog biscuits. So she's very spoiled, this dog. And I'm not fat shaming her. I promise I am not fat shaming my dog, but she does need to lose a bit of weight. However, because of her wonky hips, she can't run.
So it's a vicious cycle.
What are we gonna do? I don't know. So at the moment, she's doped up basically on drugs that the vet gave her. Yeah, she's just basically lying there with her tongue out.
I remember when Dolly injured her leg and we had to give her drugs, and it is horrible because they're proper just like droopy, aren't they?
Yeah, as droopy as her little ear.
But it's good in the long run. She'll
Yeah.
get fixed. And like I said to you, a lot of people wouldn't do anything about it. So the fact you're getting it sorted is amazing.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of people would dump their dogs.
Yep.
But Lizzie, do you have any news that you're able to share with us this week?
I do have news. I am doing my first ever professional pantomime.
What? Oh my God, I had no idea.
That was really good acting.
Thank you.
So I'm going all the way to Somerset, where they talk like that.
Somerset?
Somerset. That was pretty good. I'll give you that. That was pretty good.
My dad was born in Portsmouth, you know.
Okay, right. So
Yeah.
you have the upper hand there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm playing Princess Jill in Jack and the Beanstalk in Yeovil from the 13th of December until the 5th of January, and I'm very, very excited.
Wow. You get to stand there and say, "Where is he?" And the audience will scream at you, "Behind you."
No, I can't wait. I love panto.
Where is he? Oh my God. Pantomimes are so much fun to do. I mean, I hate children, but you know. But yeah, so that's so exciting. So you're going to be a pantomime princess.
I am.
Wow. Oh,
I'm already
awesome.
Alfie's princess, and now I get to be Princess Jill of Yeovilonia.
Now you're Alfie's queen, honey.
Yeah, that is very true.
Yeah.
And Dolly's the princess, and Alfie's the court jester.
I knew that was coming. No, we love you, Alfie. No, and lastly, nothing to do with Bloop Network, just extremely proud. On the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, my nephew performed in the Scout production. So he performed on stage for the first time, you know, in full makeup and everything. However, because the dog, I had to stay home and I had to miss it. So it's this whole thing of, I'm sorry, I can't come to your show done with all children because I have to look after my sick dog. That's not an excuse. I promise it was not bullshit. I literally had to stay home and make sure that this
And
dog.
she is your child,
And
you know.
she's my
Yeah.
child, but yeah, we had to make sure because we couldn't leave her inside. If we put her outside, then she's just going to go crazy with the birds and the other dog next door jumping on the fence, and I missed out on my nephew's first ever performance. So
Did someone film it?
yeah, it got filmed, and I'm sure it was terrible, but you know, he
They're
loved
the
it.
best ones. I
Yeah.
would honestly like prefer to sit through a terrible show than a mediocre show.
Yeah, I get that. You know, anyways, but I think that's it for the Bloop News. Did I say that correctly? Yes. So, anyways, back to the episode. All right, we're back with Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron, that's Caroline Sheen, and we're joined by Mr. Jon Robyns. What's one thing that you're terrible at that everybody else can do perfectly well?
Spelling. I can't spell. Yeah, I can't. I'm awful at it. I just don't have the brain for it. And being a lyric and book writer primarily is a problem. But computers have come to my aid. The 21st century has solved this problem for me. But yeah, growing up is just I just can't spell. And I'm not dyslexic because that is a genuine thing. I'm just bad at it.
Yeah. Did I ask you this one, Caroline?
I don't know, actually. I can't remember if you asked me.
You did, and you said pancakes.
Oh, making pancakes. Okay, yeah.
Oh, terrible. I'm terrible at making pancakes. Yeah.
Is there anything else?
Whistling.
Whistling?
Oh, come on.
Awful.
Yeah.
You can't whistle?
No. Well, I don't know. Oh, listen, we're not good whistlers on this world.
This is quality podcast content, people. Quality content.
Now, what I should have said last episode with David was that because he said he can't swim, I can swim, no worries. What I can't do is dive. Like even if I run up to the pool and I throw my arms out to dive, I still, because I'm skinny as anything, like drop into the water like a fucking candy cane. because I've got my arms out, but I can't do it. I cannot throw my legs back and dive into a pool or any sort of body of water. So I am hopeless about that. But anyways.
Do you have a secret weapon? Do you feel like when you go into an audition room that there's something you have in your arsenal that other performers perhaps don't have? What do you feel?
I don't think I have anything that other performers don't have, but I know what weapons that work with me. Weapons is a very, very aggressive term for it.
Yeah, sorry, it's not a great analogy.
No, it's fine. I like
Skill,
it.
talent.
Yeah, there are certain parts of what I do that I lean on that in auditions that I know have proved successful. One of which is treating it less like an audition and more like a rehearsal. Trying to be as collaborative with the people on the other side of the table, because I think a lot of actors feel as though it's a test or it's a war of attrition or it's you versus them, and it's not. Having been on the other side of the table, you are wanting the person auditioning to be the person to solve your problem, to be the person you want. And so they are 100,000,000% on your side. So I try and keep that at the forefront of my mind whenever I audition, which helps and in turn sets them at ease, because being in control of an audition for yourself is very comforting to the people that are running the audition. And when I teach, I always try and tell students that it is not an abnormal part of your job. It is your job. You are a professional auditioner that sometimes gets to do shows.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the work, isn't it? The work is the auditioning and the self. I mean, that's why I find self-tape so difficult, because you're not in the room able to be able to judge the situation. But when people watch your self-tape or when they're watching your audition, they want to go, that's the person, that's the one. They want you to get the job. I remember finding that out and that really freeing me sort of earlier on in my career, and going, like you say, it's not a test. I think because we're brought up through schools and doing exams and things like that, especially if you sort of do dancing exams and things and singing exams, you go in and you have to try and do it right. And it's not about doing it right. It's about doing it as well as you can and bringing what you can to the table.
Well, I mean, I have my catchy catchphrases when I teach, and one of them is, it's not about ability, it's about suitability.
Yeah.
You might be brilliant, but you're wrong for the part.
Those are the auditions I find the hardest, is because when I go into an audition and I actually know that I'm wrong for it.
Yeah.
Then I feel like such a fraud. I went up for something recently. I thought, I'm not right for this at all, but I'll go in because they've asked me to, so I'll do it. And the audition was fine, but I knew I wasn't right for it. And I think they probably realised within 2 seconds that I wasn't right for it. So it didn't feel like a big success or anything, but I had a nice time.
No, but on the flip side of the coin, it means that anytime you get a job, you are right for it, which helps with the imposter syndrome. So
yeah, exactly.
You know you're the right person.
And they remember you.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you might not be right for one thing, but you're right for the next thing.
What roles would you have played if you were a different gender?
That's very interesting. Do I get to pick how I look and how I sound?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, God, I don't know. I suspect I would have been one of those female actors who would have come into themselves later in life. I was never a boyish boy, and I suspect I wouldn't have been a girlish girl. Right. So following your world, the Fontaines and the older characters that get to do those sorts of things, I think I'd like to do those. There are the older Mama Roses and those sorts of things that I think most female actors want to do at some point, that I think would be very fun. But listen, it just betrays the lack of gender balance in musical theatre, that there are way more interesting roles for men north of 30 than there are women.
Yeah, very true.
And that was another reason why we wanted to write Then, Now and Next about the first part of female adulthood, rather than just discovering what it is to be an adult, which a lot of musicals base themselves around, that sort of late teens to mid 20s. I better find out what this adult thing is about, coming of age means. We wanted to write about the compromise of middle age and how you navigate life and relationships with baggage rather than creating baggage for yourself. So I think changing to a different gender would be more difficult, and I'm aware that there is an imbalance there.
And your name could be Robin Johns, which could also be your hobby. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Well, then I get to be related to Rachel John, who I adore.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, so sorry about that one. It says on your resume that you can speak with an Australian accent.
Yeah, that was it.
So I've prepared a few expressions.
Okay, go on. Let's go.
I would like you to repeat after me, and Caroline, you can join in as well.
Oh no.
Oh, no. You're terrible, Muriel.
You're terrible, Muriel.
Yeah, all right. How's the serenity?
What does how's the serenity mean?
Listen to that bug zapper.
Listen to that bug zapper.
Aussies will get it. Aussies will get it. Don't worry. Don't worry. So it's basically like how's the atmosphere? How's the scenery? How's the air? How's the serenity?
How's the serenity?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all right.
All right.
Those flaming galahs.
That's flaming galahs. Do people actually say flaming galah?
Have you never heard that before? Are you
I've heard it. I
neighbours?
just don't know if people actually say it. I mean, it's like people don't say apples and pears here either, but you know, it's it's in the lingo.
Oh yeah, I think I think we do it in an ironic way. I guess I say that isn't. It's totally not ironic. Struth, Elsa.
Struth, Elsa.
Struth, Elsa.
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 Struth, Elsa.
Yeah, it means good grief. All right, this is a harder one. Back in a jiffy, just popping off to the pokies for a crack.
Back in a jiffy, just popping off to the posties for a crack.
Pokies for a crack.
Pokies.
Oh, it's very good.
Yeah.
Back in a jiffy, I get popping off to the posties. What? Pokies?
Pokies.
What are the pokies?
Poker machines, like the slot machines.
Pokey.
For a crack, it's like, I mean, it's for a go, yeah.
I guess, yeah. This one you have to know. Look at me, Kimmy. Look at me. Look at me, Kimmy.
I've never watched the show, but I do know what it is.
Yeah.
Look at me, Kimmy. Look at me.
No, look at me.
Look at me. Look at me, Kimmy. Oi, Bogan. Bum us a durry, will ya?
I'm out. What?
Oi, Bogan. Bum us a durry, will ya?
Oi, Bogan. Mama said Darry, will ya?
Yeah.
No idea what I just said.
I think it's a very good accent.
Yeah, I'm quite impressed.
Thanks.
You sound Australian to me, but I'm not Australian. So.
Well, our listeners will be the ones to decide, really. Now, that means, hey, mate, can I please have a cigarette? Or can I pinch one off you?
I thought it was going to be a cigarette thing. In this country, unfortunately, we've taken a bum a fag, which has different connotations in America, I think.
Yes, we've had to clear that up a few times
Yeah.
on this show. And lastly, Thorpe says they're fully sick, mate.
Thorpe says they're fully sick, mate.
That was good. Yeah, that's
Is that Ian Thorpe?
Ian Thorpe.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did a series of commercials. It was like cereal or something. And it was like, oh, Thorpe says they're fully sick, mate.
I mean, the English translation of that is Ian Thorpe, the Olympic swimmer, advocates this product. It's like, what?
Awesome. Now that was actually really good. I am highly impressed because a
Oh.
lot of people think they can do our accent. Caroline?
I've got a couple of Welsh ones for you,
Aye.
John. Not many. So one is, I'm going to say them in an English accent because I know you can do them in Welsh, but I don't want to give you any hints. I'm going to the Cardiff Arms Park to watch the rugby.
I'm going to Cardiff Arms Park to watch the rugby.
Go to Cardiff Park to watch rugby.
It's not bad. If you were from Cardiff, it would be Cardiff Arms Park.
Cardiff.
Cardiff.
Yeah, Cardiff Arms Park. Well, so it's old now, obviously it doesn't exist, but
On the Millennium Stadium
Yeah.
now, isn't it?
yeah, it's the Principality
Is
Stadium
it?
now.
Oh, tidy.
Yeah. Oh, what's occurring?
Oh, what's occurring?
Oh, that's very good.
Well, that's Nessa, isn't
That's
it?
very good. And the other one is, Sophie, who do you love best, Daddy or Chips?
Sophie, who do you love best, Daddy or Chips?
That's a good Welsh accent.
Daddy or chips? I can do Liverpudlian.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Right?
Liverpudlian?
I love that for us.
Not bad, but the phrase you need to get your head around is to do that though, don't they though?
Don't.
It translates to they do that though, don't they though? But you say it with all D's. They do that though, don't they though?
They do that, don't they? Though.
Or the bird that KFC cook. How would you say that in Scouse?
I don't bloody know. I'm Australian.
So that's the sort of acid test. Go on, Caroline, have a go.
Chicken?
Chicken? Yeah, it's with a
Chicken?
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Chicken? Kentucky Fried Chicken?
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
With a
Hey, what you're talking about? I don't know. I have no idea. But anyways, now in this industry, how important has diplomacy been amongst friends?
diplomacy. You mean not upsetting people?
Yes, bullshitting away after you see a show that you didn't really
Oh,
like, but you're like,
right.
"Oh, I loved it. You were great. Look at the lights. Aren't they pretty?"
Right. So same thing. You've got a catchphrase that you go to, certain phrases that you say when you definitely did not enjoy a show. They range from "you guys look like you were having a great time" all the way down to "you were great, but the show was not fantastic. You were brilliant. You absolutely smashed it, but the show, nah." Like, it depends how good of friends you are. Like, if I'm watching my best friends do a show, they'll go, "How was it?" And I'll go, "It's shocking. It's terrible. Don't watch it. No one's going to see this." But it depends how good of friends you are with people. Caroline, have you got a go-to phrase with people when you don't like the show?
I think I always try and find something that was positive about it. I don't know if that's the teacher in me, but I'll always try and find something that I thought was good. I mean, not like Friends, like, oh, the costumes were great, or the lighting was really good. You were in a play, But I know as an actor, sometimes, there are people who will tell you the absolute truth, and sometimes you don't want to hear it. Sometimes I would rather they be diplomatic, or I'll just be like, oh, well, I won't enjoy that. Or if they want to tell me the truth, maybe wait until the show is over. I did a show once that quite a lot of people thought wasn't very good, but I did quite enjoy it being in it myself, and I thought it was quite good. So when they told me, I was like, oh, I wish you told me next week, because I'm still really enjoying it. And
Yeah.
this week it's still on. Do you know what I mean? And then you sort of go on stage hearing these voices in your head.
I've been in the converse of that, where I didn't think the show was very good, and friends whose opinions I valued, loved it. And that has altered my mentality towards the show I was in. So yeah, how diplomatic are we? I think it depends on how good of friends you are, but generally you err on the side of diplomacy if you're given the choice.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I think sucks, personally. Like, I get it. I totally get it. Because remember, I've written not just one novel, I've written 3. And my mum didn't like them. And she was like, oh, so where do you get your ideas from? And it's like, it's cool, mum. Just say it weren't for you.
Aww.
Like, because I can't possibly think that everyone's gonna like them. And if I was to think that, I'm sorry, I should get a new job, do something else, because I think that is that naive, arrogant point of view that it's like a chef gets angry if you return their meal because it's too dry. Mate, you didn't fucking cook it right. Put up with it. Don't get angry at me, the customer. Not that I've ever done this, because I sort of, will eat what's on my plate and I'll be grateful to be at a nice restaurant. But I know that this happens, that the chefs will get quite pissy and go to the table and say, was something wrong with your meal, was it? And the customer's put in that position of saying, well, yeah, it was really, really dry. And he's like, well, no, it's not, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, but mate, not every one of those fillets that you cook is going to be perfect. So you can't really, you can't take it personally.
It's an interesting thing, because as an actor, you're not what I would describe as completely creative. You're interpretive.
Yeah.
When you cook a meal, or you write a book, or you write a musical, or you write a screenplay, those are ideas that have come from the universe through your brain, through your hands, into something else, right? When you're an actor, you are the spearhead of an awful lot of other people's ideas and creativity. So when someone criticizes a show that I've acted in, I don't take it personally, because they're not really criticizing me. If they criticize my acting, that's different. But if we're talking about the show, that's very little to do with me, because I didn't create it. I interpreted it. And I think they are related. They're cousins, those words, but they're not the same thing. And having now produced a piece of writing that goes out into the world for people to absorb and judge and think about and consider, that's a very different thing. When someone says, I think you're writing shit, that's a very different thing to, I think your acting's shit, or that show was shit. It's a very different thing. But I'll eat anything. So I've never sent a meal back in my life.
I don't think I have either.
That's how I get to be overweight.
Admittedly, I have, because I asked for a cheeseburger and it was like just a simple with like red onion, tomato, cheese. The guy put fucking beans on it. And this was on a cruise ship. Like, so I wasn't paying for the meal anyways. Like, it was a free meal. And like, he comes up to the table and he goes, well, I thought it was a bit too simple. And they told me it wasn't for a child. And I'm like, I can order what I fucking want? Oh my God, why are you taking it upon yourself? But he was offended that I said, like, no, why is there beans all through this? Like, not even baked beans. It was like, and I wouldn't eat baked beans. That's the thing. Like, I am a fussy eater. So, anyways, this whole thing I could talk about forever. Look, but what was I going to say? In terms of the writing thing, even like as much as it was a very personal thing, writing these novels, and I'm talking 3 novels, over 1,000 pages, I know that that's nothing on the experience of the reader who has to then take that in, who has to have those words in their head as they're reading it. So I can't profess that or state that they have to meet that in the same way that I meet it. Like, I'm very, very proud, and that's all that matters, really. Like, I'm proud of my accomplishment, and some people love it, some people don't like it. One woman got 2 chapters in and she come up to me, she said, look, this is not my thing, I'm so sorry. And I still love her. That's the thing. Like, there's this notion that, say, Beyonce puts out a shit song, which she has done many times, and someone might say, oh no, I don't like this is a shit song. Oh, well, you hate Beyonce. No, I don't hate Beyonce. I love Beyonce. I just don't like this one contribution in her whole canon of things that she's done. Not all going to land. Not everything Spielberg has done. Not everything Sondheim has done. Not everything Andrew Lloyd Webber has done has been a success. There has been a critical success, but even then, 20, 30 years later, things find an audience. So I don't think about it. I think we do, as artists, do need to toughen up a little bit. And I say that with all respect, as one myself. As I say, I've got novels, I've got plays, and I've put puzzles out there, I put podcasts out there, I put board games. You guys don't even know I've made 7 or 8 board games and card games that I've published and put out there. So, I've had my feedback. Sure. I've had my death threats.
But everyone will give you feedback now, won't they? I think it's whether it, like we said earlier, from like people you respect or people that you really don't know and you don't need their opinion,
That's it.
What was your introduction to musicals, Jon? What was like the first musical you ever did? Was it in school or Amdram, or where did Jon meet a musical?
You mean in terms of performing or in terms of experiencing and watching?
Either.
My mother tells me that I watched Oliver on repeat, the 60s movie, and I think a lot of children find solace and resonance with children characters as well. So Oliver was probably the first sort of musical that I watched on TV. There's an apocryphal story that I've told on various other interviews about. There was an Israeli band at the local Jewish community centre when I was a kid, and as a toddler I went and sat on stage underneath the lead singer, practically on his feet, and looked up at him and watched him from the stage. So wanted to be where that was and felt comfortable in that world. So I think it was innate in me. In terms of when I knew that I wanted to do that thing, it was a production of Jesus Christ Superstar. That you were in? Or? No, that I watched when I was 15 at the New Theatre in Cardiff, actually. Yeah. I've since worked with people that were in that production and thanked them.
Did you feel like a fool? Because I have when I've said it.
No, not really. Sure. Not really, because I mean, like Fred Johansson, who was playing Judas that day, I've done gigs with him, and he knows me as the guy that thanks him, because every time I do a gig with him, I thank him for that, because it was something that resonated with me, that he did a performance that moved me so much, and then when I was applauding in the audience, he gave me a little nod, and I remember thinking, if I can make someone else feel like I feel right now, that would be a very cool job, to make people feel a certain way or think a certain thing. And I remember thinking that at the time when I was 15. So that sort of solidified wanting to be a professional performer for me there.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, fab.
Beautiful answer.
I love that. And you never know, like when you're doing a show now, who that person is going to be out there, but they will be out there. I've had people say similar things to me. I saw Witches of Eastwick or whatever, and that's what made me do what I do. And you're like, oh my God, that we don't do heart surgery, we don't do brain surgery, but we do alter the path of some people's lives. And I think that's quite important. And it's a nice thing to feel like you have an impact, isn't it?
Well, because of the sort of advent and popularization of social media, people can message people a lot easier. Like when we were kids, I could have written him a letter, but I wasn't a letter writing person, so I didn't bother. So it took 20 years for me to get around to 15 years, whatever it was, to telling him. Whereas if someone saw me play Valjean or Phantom or whatever it was, and they can message me that night saying, this moved me so much, you've made my mind up for me to do this with my life, or this meant so much because it opened up my mind to X, Y, or Z. We can tell people these things now, and if you're the sort of person that is wanting to do that, you have the ability. So I think it's nice that people do, like you said, people do come up to you and say that performance changed my life, and you kind of go, thank you. And you sort of have to sort of accept. It's a really odd thing to accept, but learning to sort of accept that sort of thing, because it's not about you, it's about them. So to make it about you,
it's about their experience that you happen to be a part of, isn't it? Like you say, we're doing the interpreting of other people's work, and it's, you know, it's whether they had a good journey in the car on the way there as well. And, you know, it's all so much to do with chemistry, but it's nice to sort of be a part of that chemistry when it works.
Now, the question I have here is going to spark off another long answer.
I have to go and pick up children from school at some point.
Yes, save it for another time, because I'd love to have you back, Jon, obviously, but I'll let you go. In terms of all our past guests, you have most definitely been the most recent. So thank you very much for joining us. It is truly such an honor.
Thank you. I'd love to come back anytime. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so it's an open invitation. Like, Jonathan, if I'm dragging my past guests to come and co-host with me, clearly there's an open door policy for all guests to come back on the show. Maybe bar a couple that I wouldn't want to. No comment on that. Cut that out of the show. Definitely. But anyways, where can people find you on the social medias?
I'm on Instagram at J_Robyns, I believe. But yeah, I this is a longer discussion, I'm sure, but I came off X and Twitter when it was a black hole of awfulness. So I came off that. But I love Instagram, and I'm terrible at it, but I do really enjoy it. So I'm on there.
Yep. Thank you for being on there, because when you clicked like on David's episode, I'm like, I'm gonna hit him up now and be like, yes, I've been waiting for 2 bloody years. I look like a skeleton sitting here with cobwebs all over me. But no, I didn't, obviously. I was much more polite than that.
You're very polite, and I appreciate it.
But yes, no. And Caroline, thank you so much.
Thank you. I've had a lot of fun.
Alrighty, I'm going to round this up really quickly today because it's 5 p.m. on a Tuesday. Dinner's being cooked. I'm really hungry. I'm tired. It's been a long episode already. And my friend Drew is at the pub waiting to go to the train station to listen to the latest episode of his favorite podcast while he's on the train home. So I better be really quick. And a huge thank you to Jon Robyns for joining me. It was well and truly worth the wait. What a wonderful episode that was. The conversation was incredible to listen to, especially because of the beautiful Caroline Sheen. Thank you again for joining me. What a thrill it was. What a stacked episode of West End icons we had there. So I'm not going to bother going through the social medias. Just look in the details below. You'll find all the links there. They should be clickable. Just to clarify, Chookers actually comes from Aussie theatre 100 or so years ago, or roundabouts, when a theatre would have maybe, 50% of an audience, they would get bread for dinner. But when it was a full house, they would get chicken for dinner. So Chookers comes from that. It comes from being rewarded with a chicken dinner for selling out a full house. Yum. And I think I'm having chicken for dinner tonight. Excellent. I know I am, actually, because I'm going to have a KFC burger. Anyways, a huge thank you to Jon and his agent as well for the help, and to Caroline, to Lizzie B as well for joining me for the news. I guess that's it. I'm not sure when we're going to be back because we've got some recordings coming up in October, but at the moment things are obviously a little bit screwy with me with the dog. So who knows when we're going to be back with new episodes. But till then, you take care and we shall see you next time. Hooroo!
Thanks, Aaron.
Bye-bye.
Like quicksand!
Thorpe says they're fully sick.